All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another one of my interviews here on Drip Talk with Blake DeSnake Roberts. Today, I have another very special guest with me today. He is a former pro wrestler. He has wrestled for companies such as ECW, Eastern Championship Wrestling, NWA, WWF, ECWA, MEWF, FCW, SWO, and DCW, and much, much more. He is no other than the madman from the Badlands, Glen Osbourne. So we'll get him on in here and we will start with the interview.
Hey,
Hello,
Blake.
how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank
Great.
you
Thanks
for
for
taking
having
your
me on. I appreciate it.
thank you for taking your time out to do this.
Sure.
All right. So I'll start off by asking you my first question.
Sure.
When did you start doing wrestling and what made you want to do it?
I started wrestling I was 18 years old. I had just got out of high school. And I had gone into art school right from high school. I'd been a wrestling fan since I was 7 years old. But I never thought I thought about doing it. I guess sometime in my teens, I started lifting weights when I was 14 years old. And having been a fan all that time, I thought, maybe I'll give this a shot. So after high school, art school wasn't working out so well for me. And I heard about some tryouts that were going on in Philadelphia. So I took a crack at it and I passed the tryouts and I started training. So that's a real quick version. But I'm here to answer any questions. So anything you'd like to know about any of that, I'm here.
Yeah, sweet. Who was your trainer getting into the wrestling business? Who helped you?
Um, the promoter that started me was named Joel Goodhart. He was around the business for a long time. He had a radio show in Philadelphia called Wrestling Radio, which was very popular. And he had a club called, it was the Wrestling Radio Fan Club. And they would take bus trips down to Memphis and go do all these things. And Joel was the one who opened the wrestling school where I went to, which was called Ringmasters. My trainer was named Larry Winters. I had two in the beginning, Ron Shaw and Larry Winters. Ron Shaw wasn't there very long. Ron Shaw, famously, fans may know, as the man who submitted David Sammartino to a bear hug. Do you remember that? Do you know that famous match? Infamous match. Well,
I
Ron
heard of
was the
it,
guy.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Ron was one of my trainers initially, but I was mainly trained by Larry Winters, who has passed on since. But Larry wrestled all around Philly. He had a run in the AWA. He was a legend in independent wrestling, and especially around the Philadelphia area. He, along with DC Drake, Johnny Hotbody, Tony Stetson, if you know these names, um, really helped put the Philly wrestling scene on the map, and Tri-State Wrestling Alliance, which went on to become ECW. So we were all a part of that early Philadelphia wrestling scene. But Larry was my primary trainer. But yeah,
Yeah.
getting into it was go ahead.
Oh no, I was just agreeing. Like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was interesting. Wrestling training's pretty much everything that you've probably heard that it is. Larry was really patient though with me. I had a couple of things that I was hung up on, certain bumps and things, and it's just repetition. You do it over and over and over and over until you get it. And you break some habits and things like that, and hopefully don't pick up any new bad habits. But yeah, and then most of it's learning from experience. You learn the basics in wrestling school, but it's when you get out on the road and you start traveling and getting around other groups of guys as you travel state to state, and in my case, up and down the East Coast. And that's where a lot of the real learning takes place. Absolutely is learning on the job.
Yeah. So, did you watch wrestling as a kid? If so, who was your favorite wrestler growing up?
I did. I watched wrestling, any wrestling I could find growing up, which in my case was like WWF, it was called then, NWA, Jim Crockett, the AWA, Memphis Mid South, World Class. Being from Philly, I was really lucky in that we got all of those here. Philly was always a big wrestling city, big wrestling town. So I would, and when I was growing up, I not only watched it, but I would go downtown into the city. I'm in the suburbs right outside of Philly. I would go down into the city to see the matches live. To me, there was nothing like watching it live. So I'd go down to the Philadelphia Spectrum, the Philadelphia Civic Center. I'd watch the WWF, the NWA, anything independent. I mean, if there was a ring and wrestlers, like I was interested pretty much. Um, so yeah, to say the least, watched it on TV every chance I got, and went to see it live every chance I got, and it was cool. So seeing it live is like nothing else. You know,
Yeah,
live entertainment. It's like seeing bands live and things. It's so engaging. You know.
yeah. Like when wrestling shows come up here, every chance I get, like the big WWE shows, I go to that. Even like the indie shows, when they come along, I'm like, yeah, I definitely got to go to that.
Yeah, yeah. It's fascinating live. It's just to watch the work, watch the art of the work. As we say, and to see it, the art of it live. It's just so cool. It's not like watching it on TV.
Yeah,
So
most definitely.
um
Who would you say is a favorite wrestler to watch nowadays?
um well, I think the women have really come along a lot I mean, I always like women's wrestling, and they're finally getting the stage. I think that they've really deserved all along. Um, like Rhea Ripley is excellent. Um, Becky Lynch, a lot of these names. I like Shayna Baszler a lot. But as far as guys go, I like a lot of the bigger guys, like Drew McIntyre is good. Gunther. Um, I like the guys that are big, credible looking guys. Like that's what I grew up on. So the smaller guys are cool. I mean, that's what's big now, and I think a good card will have something for everybody. You'll have the high flying stuff. You'll have the big hosses. That kind of thing. So yeah, like that. WWE has a lot of good stuff. I honestly don't watch that much, but I watch what I can. I do listen to podcasts and just kind of keep up with things that way. I see very little AEW, if any, but I do try to keep up with things that way. Once wrestling's in your blood, even when you're not doing it anymore, you want to kind of keep up and fantasize that maybe you could still go in there and hobble around. It's not going to happen, but when you've been in it that long, it never leaves you ever. So,
Yep, definitely.
um, can I ask you a quick question? How did you get
Yeah,
into
of course.
interviewing guys? It's really unique. That's a really cool thing to do. At your age and everything. So I certainly commend you. And again, for having me on. But it takes a lot of passion to do something like this. So you know, very much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. So I actually started doing interviewing. I'm 15 right now, and I started doing interviewing many like years ago, and I was like probably I would say 13.
Wow.
Well, it was before the COVID pandemic. I was starting
Wow.
to interview. So possibly even like 12, I was doing interviews. I wasn't
Yeah.
as professional as I am now, of
Okay.
course, because of my age,
Sure.
and I just had my phone in my hand on like a couch or something, and I interviewed like wrestlers.
Yeah.
And my first ever interview was with a monster truck driver, you know, which was something that was the first ever interview I did.
Hmm,
And then, which for me, now seeing back on that, it's like, I don't know why I interviewed. My first interview was a monster truck driver instead of a wrestler. But I mean, it was
that's
cool.
cool.
And then,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you learn as you go, you know. So that's really
Hmm.
cool. That's really cool. So yeah, thanks for letting me
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And I got some of the advice and some of the output from Chris Van Vliet, too. He really gets it out there and
Very
taught
cool.
me how to do some stuff. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you have good mentorship there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, very cool. So yeah, so that's interesting. And yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I got off, lost my train of thought there for a sec. Too many chairs to the head.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Was there anybody that like inspired you family wise to get into the business?
No, no, not at all. It was my family is not. You wouldn't really think that a wrestler would come out of my family, but I come from a more sort of working class part of my family. Raised by a single mom, which is, I think, contributes to why I was into wrestling because they're alpha males, and it gives a young man something, at least on the surface, to pattern themselves after. Um, uh, it's as far as building character, I can't think of much better than working your way through the world of wrestling, the world of sports when you're younger are great, but as far as learning about the world, that really started when you get out onto the circuit and you start to work with other people and other promoters. And man, I'll tell you, but no, family wise, no, I would say just from the fact of pretty much not having enough family. I would describe wrestling as the parent who didn't leave. So that was always a constant in my life from the time I was a young kid. So um, yeah, it was kind of like wrestling was my family, I guess, if that doesn't sound hokey, but it was.
Yeah, of course.
And I like almost everybody I've come in contact with. I see everyone as a potential friend, and I really don't have not had a lot of bad dealings with anybody. So I think I'm one of the few that's probably had a mostly positive experience going through the business, because I know a lot of people haven't. So I try
Mm,
not to add to the negativity quotient when it comes to that stuff, but you know.
yeah. Talking about that, who are some wrestlers that you consider as family?
Um, all the guys I started out with, who I kind of mentioned before from the early Philly scene, guys like Johnny Hotbody, Tony Stetson, Jimmy Janetti, the whole crew, JT Smith, Sandman was in my class, the Sandman. Um, that entire crew, Joel Goodhart, who started us, but I've traveled to so many promotions and been around so many places that you meet so many people. It's such a large community. It's hard to pick certain people that I would, but maybe a lot of names you wouldn't know. Certain people who are behind the scenes. Uh, but yeah, as you know, it's a great fraternity, brotherhood and sisterhood to be a part of, and I feel comfortable around the people in wrestling. I feel comfortable in a wrestling dressing room. I've never felt threat or anything like that. I've always felt like I was welcomed. So I think that's by and large sort of that adds to that feeling of as the wrestling community is family to me. So I miss that not being in it anymore, is that family feeling in the back. and stuff, especially if you've had a good show.
Yeah, most
Mhm.
definitely. Yeah. Who would you say has been like the stiffest wrestler you've gone in the ring with in your career?
Wow. Um, Bob Holly was up there. You may hear that. I didn't take that. Some people say he's a bully. I didn't take it like that. It's just he works snug. He lays stuff in. All you do is you give it back to him, and you work. And that's it. And um, King Kong Bundy, but that's not because he was trying to either. It's because he was so big and so strong. He'd throw like a big punch or a big chop, and he couldn't help but lay it in. But that's no knock on him or on Bob Holly. Again, that's just his style. Um, some guys are smooth as silk, and other guys are. Those two come to mind. I'm sure there's a lot more I'm not thinking about, but different times that even if a guy's not particularly stiff, something's ill-timed, and you catch a clothesline in the mouth, or drop kick in the back, whatever, and
Yep.
something goes a little haywire. But yeah, that's about it. Most people everyone's been professional. Oh, Iron Mike Sharp too, the chops. Holy crow! That guy would throw. His hands were like canoe paddles, and I got to work with him a few times. Again, but it's that old school stiffness. It's that snugness. It was not that he's trying to be a jerk and beat you up or anything. It was just that's how some of those guys worked back then. So yeah, but you could always count on a stiff night with some of those guys.
Yep. Did you ever get into the ring with Vader? Because I heard that he was kind of
No,
stiff.
I never did. I've met him, but I never worked with him, thankfully. Again, no knock
Yeah.
on him. He's so big and strong. I guess kind of like Bundy was. They almost can't help but manhandle you. And I can imagine too, if they don't like you, you're you're in a pretty bad situation. So, but
Yeah.
no, I never got to work with him. So
And about Iron Mike Sharp, what company did you work with him for?
I worked with him in WWF and Worldwide Wrestling Alliance, and I feel like there was somewhere else. Those two definitely, yeah, WWF and WWWA. I really liked working with him. He was a really, really good guy. I was really sad when he passed away, as were a lot of people. But he was a character, but definitely good in the ring, and snug and good with the psychology and everything. Very old school.
Yeah. And I heard about something that he was like always like the first one there to the show and like the last one. And he was kind of like a germaphobe. Was that kind of true?
Yeah, yeah, uh huh. I'd heard a lot of those stories too, where he would get locked into the building. He'd still be in the shower, and everyone would leave, and they'd close up the arena, and he'd be locked in there. I didn't witness anything like that, but he would pace around a lot, and he would work out, and he was gruff. He kind of talked to himself, bump into things, and and he was just kind of gregarious. He was a neat guy. So um,
Yeah.
he was one of the first guys that I saw. One of my first shows where I was on with outside talent, not just my own crew that I grew up with, but where the guys run in. Mike Sharp was on that show along with Ken Patera, Kamala, the Ugandan Giant, the Samoans, Bob Orton Jr. It was the first time I'd seen some of these guys and how big they really were. And when I saw Iron Mike Sharp, who I'd seen on TV a million times, I was like, good God, like he was just a big, big man. Um, that's another memory I have of him. He was like the first guy that I saw that I was like, oh my God, I got to get in the gym more. And and catch up to play a little catch up. So,
Yeah.
but a lot of guys I wound up wrestling with and working with over the years were trained by him in Brick, New Jersey. There was a Bricktown crew, so Ace Darling and Mike Terrace and a lot of those guys came out of that school.
Yeah. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Were you ever in like any type of school or amateur wrestling as a kid?
Very briefly in high school, but as I said, I was raised by a single mom, and I had to quit for a job, unfortunately. So no, I didn't go very far with that. I did a lot of the training and weight cutting and stuff like that, but just as the season started, I had to stop. So that was it. Cut short,
Yeah.
but I always appreciated it. And when I started training at Ringmasters Wrestling School, we did learn some stuff, you know, takedowns and things that were you could use legitimately and arm holds and things like that. But yeah, no, that was pretty much it. But I
Yeah.
did a little bit of bodybuilding and stuff like that. I was more into the individual type of sports. So
Hmm.
yeah. But some of the guys have tremendous amateur backgrounds, yeah, as you know.
Yeah, most
Yeah.
definitely. Like
Mm-hmm.
Kurt Angle and
Mm-hmm. And
uh,
going back further, guys
Shelton.
like Vern Gagne, Ken Patera with the weightlifting. I mean, there's a long history of Olympians and things like that in wrestling. Yeah, Kurt Angle, my God, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, certainly.
Yep.
But yeah, that's always impressive. Um, Getting to be around somebody like that. I've gotten to meet him a couple of times. Um, Whenever I would go up and work for WWE for dark matches or anything like that. So I got to meet a ton of people, which is really cool, or be in the presence of them or talk with them. But that was always a cool experience.
Hmm. And did you have like more than one match on WWF and
Yeah,
WWE?
I started in the summer of 1994. They were coming through my area, and somebody missed a flight. It was actually the first time I wrestled Iron Mike Sharp. I think it was Coco Beware missed a flight, and I was in the area. I was bouncing at the time, and Jim Kettner was the promoter I worked for in Delaware, who was one of the big promoters I worked for throughout the years. He gave me a call at my job and said, they're WWF's in town, and this opening has come up. Are you available? And I said, hell yeah. So, my mom brought my bag, and I threw it in my car, and I raced down, and that was the first time. And then so they liked me, so they were on a little 3 night loop that weekend. So I worked for them that night, and then the next night I wrestled Coco Beware, and the third night was in Wildwood, New Jersey, and I don't remember. But anyway, I started going back up there, I guess around 99, 2000 for some dark match stuff. And I guess the highlight of that was I got to wrestle one of my students, J.R. Ryder, up in the Meadowlands for a dark match right before Raw. So that was really cool to sort of warm the crowd up, and we did a good job. Tom Pritchard was the one who produced our match, and he was complimentary to a really nice guy. And that was a highlight to work in front of a crowd because they said, you know what, they don't know you, they're probably not going to react or give you anything. We got some response out of them, so we thought that was a win. J.R. Ryder and myself were
Hmm.
out there. They didn't know who we were unless they were fans of independent wrestling around that area, but. So that was really cool. But anytime I worked up there for WWE, everybody was really, really great. It was they treated everybody, treated me really nicely, and anybody I ever went up with or anything, we were all treated really well.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because when I did my search on you, I actually only seen that you did one match for the WWF, which was against JR Ryder. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
I that's why I asked, because I didn't know that you did more than just that
That
match.
Yeah, just that kind of stuff. That the stuff I did originally was just the fill-in stuff. But going up for the darks was cool. Jim Cornette he brought me up a number of times. Uh, I always said one of my highlights in wrestling was that Jim Cornette saw something in me enough to bring me up there and always have me around for a while. He'd book me for TVs or, um, if nothing else, just to come be around and meet people and just kind of be seen. He did that for guys like myself and Devin Storm, who's now Crowbar, Ace Darling, some of us Cheetah Master, who were local independent guys that he thought looked good and worked well and stuff, but that he took the time to bring me up. I'll never forget that. And I'll always be a big Jim Cornette fan. I was a fan of his anyway, but to work with him that closely was really neat, really cool. Like a dream come true. So,
Yeah, one of like probably the best um, announcer commentators and one of the best managers.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. One of the top, easily top two in my estimation, two or three.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah, for
no
sure.
doubt. Hmm.
What would you consider as a weakness and then a strength in wrestling of yours?
Oh wow. Ooh. Um, I guess like a weakness would probably. I think probably a strength is psychology. I was good. I've been told at least that I was good, and I feel like that was a strong suit of mine, was doing more with less and getting the crowd involved. As far as a weakness goes, yeah, I mean, I always thought I was a pretty solid hand and I could do a lot of different types of matches, but I was never like flying off the ropes or doing like super high. To me, a high spot was like tackle, drop down, hip toss, arm drag, drop kick, powder. Like it wasn't. I wasn't doing anything that was like real cutting edge. I had a gimmick, so some people liked, some people didn't. I don't know. It felt. I just kind of ran with how I was booked, pretty much. So as I got older and kept lifting and stuff, I got bigger. So it turned into more of a like a powerhouse type of thing. But when I was younger, I did a lot more wrestling. Um, I was lighter and could move around a little bit better. So that probably would be a weakness. Um, and again, some people, I came up my prime was like in the 90s, so back then a gimmick like I had worked in a lot of places and didn't in others, so I started in the early ECW, but the direction that went, I went to a lot of other independents at large, like the NWA and ECWA and Worldwide and places like that, and just worked as much as I could. I mean, I just wrestled. I figured if I wasn't going to get big time TV, my favorite bands always made their reputation by just playing live, just going everywhere and playing live. And I thought, well, I'll just do that with wrestling. I'll just get myself booked as much as I can. I got a lot of magazine coverage, which was great for an independent wrestler like myself. And just if I was going to get known, it'd be through wrestling in your town. I would just wrestle as much as I could. And that's pretty much what I did for a long time. And then do like if a WWF shot came up, or something. So hope I didn't ramble too
Yeah,
much or did get off point too much, but
no, that was perfect. Was it hard for you to travel from show to show, and what was the worst or best thing about traveling?
traveling's probably the thing I miss the least. Um, Being in the independence, it was just a lot of car rides. So for many, many years, I'd carpool with different people. Um, And then the last several years that I was wrestling, I just went myself. I just would drive myself. I just didn't feel like having anyone around, and just kind of listen to my music and get set for the show. Um, but it was tough, especially doing like double shots and things. I did a lot of those in the '90s, afternoon show and then the night show. Sometimes you wouldn't even change out of your gear; you'd just jump in your car and go. Um, Long trips. I remember like going to North Carolina wrestling and then driving back to Philly all in one day. So like 8 hours down, wrestled 8 hours back. Next day we were in New York. I was in New York. The next day was Connecticut, then Baltimore, then Delaware. It was just like up and down, just all around. So I do not miss any of that, certainly. But talking in the car was cool, getting to be and just kind of, shooting the shit with, excuse me, the breeze with people. Um, I had an old friend, Carl Fisher, who used to wrestle as Blue Thunder,
Mm.
Thunder, and then Armageddon, and we would travel together. And when you travel well with somebody, it's always a great experience. You laugh and have a lot of fun. So I definitely liked doing that and traveling with some of the boys on the road. But the car rides themselves could be really brutal. Yeah. So
Yeah, I would take that. I mean, it's probably better when you have somebody like your friends with you, but then when you're like alone,
yeah.
it's probably like really, really boring.
It can be, yeah, it can. The long trips can be boring. And I remember a couple times having to pull over and wake myself up a little and have some coffee or something. Or um, I tried not to go on really long trips by myself. I didn't have to, just for obvious reasons. But you know, it was like the idea was if you were within 3 hours of home, it was basically like a night off. It was so close, but after 3 hours, you'd start, at least I would start charging for trans and stuff like that, because that's starting to get long. But listen, independent wrestling back in the day, that's how it was. You're just driving from town to town all the time. And a lot of the time I was wrestling too, I was in college, so that overlapped. So I would plan my school schedule around my wrestling schedule and vice versa. And I was lucky I had some good professors who were lenient. So, but yeah, just constantly traveling. Don't miss it.
Yeah,
Be nice to teleport if you could just say, okay, I'm at home, get in your gear, snap your fingers, you're in the dressing room. Like if that could happen, that would be great. But yeah, unfortunately.
yeah, that would probably solve everything. I mean, we wouldn't need vehicles, like
Yeah,
we wouldn't need
yeah,
any transportation.
exactly. And I think that beats you down too. I mean, it's not just your match, it's just then you get back in the car, you change, you get back in the car, and then you don't move for however many hours you're in the car, and you get out and you're stiff as a board, and
Yep.
so that's not good for the joints either. But
Hmm.
so I probably most got, and I'm not a partier or anything, so the road life like that, didn't go and staying in hotels and all, like that was just part of it, the job. I was, I didn't relish the road stuff, so sort of.
Yep. Who was your first opponent in front of a crowd, and how did you feel going into that first match?
My first match ever was when I started wrestling. They gave me a gimmick brother who wrestled as Johnny O. O is short for Osborne. So
Mm, yep.
that didn't last long, but we trained together. And our first match was against Big Slam, who was also known as Big Slam Vader, who was also back in the day known as Crybaby Waldo. His name was Walt McDonald. He's a big 400-pound teddy bear of a guy. He's passed on too since, God rest his soul. But he was a big 400-pound, kind of looked like Vader, big, burly. I don't know if you've ever seen him before. Big forearms, just a big, heavy guy. So it was myself and my gimmick brother Johnny O in a handicap match against Big Slam when he was wrestling as Crybaby Waldo, and we lasted maybe a couple of minutes. It was a squash. I think we got one spot in on him, and then he pinned us. But my first real match, competitive match, was against Jimmy Janetti in New Jersey, and that was a singles match, and I won that one. And then the rest was history. So those were my first two
Yeah.
matches, really. Yeah. So most of us started a lot of battle royals. A lot of that getting squashed. So everybody kind of starts off like that for the most part. It's paying the dues and going in the ring and getting your ass handed to you, taking the bumps, and so it's all part of it, part of the magic.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, because I looked up Crybaby Waldo before the interview as well.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, he does look like Vader a little bit.
He wrestled as Big Slam Vader for a while, and I think people, we had the mask like that, and people started kind of calling him out on that a little bit. He got a lot of work as that because he looked the part, but then he just became Big Slam and more like himself and stuff. And he promoted a lot, and he was just a great guy. He used to book me on his shows and everything. So yeah, that was a shame when he passed just a few years ago. 2 years ago, something like that. So,
Oh,
unfortunately, in wrestling, it's not unusual when you hear that someone's passed, as you know, with
yeah.
recent passings that we've had. So it's always depressing.
Yeah, there's been a lot of wrestling passings recently, and it's just like, geez,
Were
it's
you a
sad.
fan? Were you a fan at all of Ole Anderson?
I liked his stuff. I mean, I wasn't like a big fan. I didn't watch his stuff
Mm.
specifically a lot, but I mean, I knew mostly of his brother Arn more than
Yeah, Arn. Oh
him.
man, yeah.
But yeah, otherwise, yeah, I really did like him and his stuff. He did great in the ring.
Yeah, I like that kind of wrestling, like that legit. Like Ole didn't look like a bodybuilder, but he was just big and like he just looked like he could damage somebody. And Arn goes without saying, but and Ole as a booker and everything was did a lot of really amazing things. So that was a big one. Virgil, and just it always seems like we're losing somebody. So.
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest one was Bray Wyatt. I mean, for me
Oh
at
God,
least.
yeah, that took everybody. I mean, by such surprise. It's just tragic. And he
Yep,
was
I
talented, and yeah, I mean, it was just what a loss. I grew up watching his. I was a big fan of his dad, Mike Rotundo. Um, Team with Barry Windham, and when he did his whole IRS thing, he was great. But yeah, that's such a shame. God. Well, how old was he? Like
yeah,
30, 34 or something like that? He's really young.
yeah, I would say, yeah, I think yeah, he was like in his
Somewhere in there.
mid 30s.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Yeah. Um, yeah, Jay Briscoe, he was another one. I helped train him in the beginning, very, very beginning of his career, him and his brother. And them and their parents used to come down to a wrestling school called WrestleTech in Delaware, where I was training at the time. And they were just young kids. And they started training there. And myself and Eddie Valentine, who wrestles in Florida, we were their initial trainers. I mean, we didn't make them who they wound up becoming, but I think we set the sort of the groundwork with like some of the psychology stuff and some of the basic stuff. And then again, they went out on their own, and then you learn. That's when the real learning begins. So um, that was very, very sad. So
Yeah, I think that was also a shocker as well. I mean, we didn't
yeah,
see that one coming either.
No, I mean that was just tragic, and I know that area where that happened, and it is very rural, and I can see how something like that could happen. So, um, well, now that I've brought the mood down, and made things dark, had the show take a dark turn, but
the
sometimes that'll
dark
happen.
the dark side of the podcast.
Yeah, right. I know. Jeez, I try to bring the mood up a little bit.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah. So anyway, well, WrestleMania is right around the corner, and I live right here in Philly, so everyone's talking about it. It's going to be pretty big. So, are you going to watch that?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch that. I never miss
Cool.
WrestleMania because WrestleMania is the biggest show and it's just awesome overall.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
fav One of my favorites is the Hall of Fame because
Hmm.
my favorite thing is just to see the old like the old wrestlers come back and be on TV again. That's what
Yeah.
I like. I like how they have like Legends nights or like reunions.
Hmm.
That's what I like a lot to see
Hmm.
like the older wrestlers come back
Yeah.
and like the legends because it's like that's awesome to see that they're still in business and friendly with the WWE and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
It's nice to see, like, even at my age, guys that I grew up watching who are getting now sort of getting their flowers, as they say, and getting their halls of fame inductions and things like that. It's nice to see the guys that inspired you to do it getting their due. Um, so many of the guys that I grew up and idolized, and some of them got to work with, which was awesome, and to see them get their due, it's great. The fan in you is always like, oh man, that's awesome to see. So still a lot of names that need to go in there, but that's
I
maybe
mean,
one
yeah,
day.
there's so many. Like, I think one that's way overdue is Cindy
Mhm.
Lauper.
Yeah, I absolutely. I had heard. I don't know if it's true. I'd heard they'd offered it and she refused it. But again, that's just rumor. I don't know if that's true. But I agree with you completely. Yeah, on that one. Yeah, and then
Yeah,
the obvious names like Demolition and King Kong Bundy and Ivan Koloff and Rick Martel, and there's so many that should be in there. I'm sure I'm missing a lot, but
I mean, yeah, you could probably make like a book on the wrestlers that are not in there that should be.
yeah.
And honest, honestly, who caught me off guard this year to be inducted was Thunderbolt Patterson. I mean, he was
Hmm.
caught by surprise.
I think
Muhammad
that caught
Ali.
everyone by surprise. Yeah, I mean, not that he's not. I mean, he was again one of those guys that could talk him into the building. He had the rap, he had the promo. You Really, at the end of the day, it's entertaining the fans, and he did that. So he wasn't like Kurt Hennig in the ring, certainly, but he meant a lot to a lot of people. So. Uh, I think they also look for overall influence, and I think that has something to do with it. But yeah, I was surprised too by that. But God bless him. Good for him. You know.
Yeah, because it's like every year there's always like spoilers about and like people saying and everywhere that these specific wrestlers are going to go in this year. Like this year was Lex Luger, Haku,
Yeah.
Bray Wyatt, and
Mm.
then the WWE announces like these outrageous names that you never thought would have been in there. So they put in the ones that outrageous
Yeah.
names that you wouldn't think of, and then yeah,
Yeah. I know. I had heard about Luger and Haku also, so I was a little surprised that they weren't going to go in, but more power to everyone that's going in. So it's great to see Mike Rotundo, Barry Windham, who is one of my all-time favorites. Uh, it's good to see him going in again as a two-time inductee. So, um, and I've got to work around him before and be around him, and he was such a nice guy. So I'm very happy for him. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah. Who do you think would be inducting the U.S. Express?
That's a really good question. I mean, some of their biggest rivals as the U.S. Express. I mean, I think of like Sheik and Volkov, but they're both gone, unfortunately, and so is Johnny Valiant, Freddie Blassie. I don't know. Getting back to
Yeah.
death and gloom again. I don't know. That's a great question. Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I looked at their matches and I who would have been perfect was Sheik and Volkov. I would have
Yeah,
that they would have been perfect. But
yeah,
then I mean, all the wrestlers that they've wrestled, you know, uh
yeah.
but
Oh,
honestly, I feel
go ahead.
like who could
Mm,
is possibly like Kendall Windham or like Jojo Offerman. I
okay.
mean,
Yeah, I mean that
who's
would work. That would be good. Um, yeah, I could definitely see that working. Beefcake and Valentine are still around, and kicking. So, and they did traded the tag titles as well. So maybe them, maybe them. Um, yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know. We'll see. The Philly crowd, though,
yeah.
man, they're rough. So, but they're respectful of the ones that they love, though, so, and loyal to them. So, it'll be a good crowd to see reacting to the Hall of Fame. You
Yep.
know. Hmm.
And now another big question. Who do you think will be inducting Paul Heyman? Because there's name
Wow.
after name.
Yeah, I mean, I'd heard Jim Cornette. He said he doesn't want to do it. Boy, there's such a list of people. God, boy, oh boy, that could be anybody. I mean, he's had such an impact. I don't know. Jerry Lawler, maybe. Um, I don't know. How about you? Any ideas?
Yeah, I was honestly thinking um, CM Punk, who he managed,
Oh
or
yeah, that's. Mhm.
mhm, or even like Stone Cold Steve Austin, because he's been rumored to show up at WrestleMania in the tag team match with The Rock and Cody.
Okay.
Um, the Dudley Boys. I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah.
because they've been rumored to be there at for that 7-man tag team ladder match. So I
Cool.
mean,
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, Austin would be neat because they have the history with the Dangerous Alliance in WCW. That would be a great one. I guess anyone from that faction, Larry Zabisco was in there, Steve Austin, Arn Anderson, Bobby Eaton, who's passed, unfortunately. He was one of my favorites. Yeah, I guess anyone that was attached to that. So that would be cool, though, either way. So,
hmm
wow. And it's the 40th one. I remember when the first one was happening. So I was dating myself, but it's always been a huge deal. Yeah. Do you have a
yeah,
favorite one? Do you have a favorite thus far? Everyone seems to have a favorite.
WrestleMania.
Yeah. There's
Oh,
39 to
jeez.
choose from. Not
Uh,
to put you on the spot. It's,
honestly, I wouldn't know uh which one because there's so many great ones,
yeah.
and so I
Yeah.
mean,
Can't pick.
yeah.
I get you, man. I hear you. Yeah. There's a lot to choose from. So,
hmm But since it's the 40th one this year, I feel like they're gonna have some big surprises and stuff this year since it's
Yeah,
the 40th.
yeah, I agree. It's the 40th, and again, the Philly crowd. Maybe things will be slanted a little differently or something. We'll see. It's interesting
Yeah,
with Triple H now. Seemingly running things. I think we're going to see a lot of improvements. We've already seen some, so I think that's going to kind of continue with that, God willing. So it's been nice seeing the changes that seem to have been happening already. Vince was really he needed to go, and all this new stuff coming out. Oh man, so
yeah,
that's pretty
and
incredible.
yep, you do know the ECW Straw Hat fan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, hat guy, John Bailey. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
So if I would probably flip out if I seen him there. I mean, it'd be cool to see him at in the crowd there.
that would be really neat. Yeah, yeah, that would be because he was there from the beginning in the crowd. He was even there at the before the predecessor to ECW, which I started in, which was the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance. He was at those shows in the front row screaming at everybody. So he's been giving everyone heat for decades. He does some managing now. I don't know if you knew that. He does some managing in certain independent groups. So yeah, he wound up getting into it.
Yeah, I seen some of his stuff that he does. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and since WrestleMania is in Philly, what I think would be is that what so Paul Heyman is getting inducted. I think WWE could bring back like a list of bigger ECW originals or bigger names,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Paul Heyman could be doing his either his induction,
Mm-hmm.
and all of the wrestlers could be there with him, the ECW wrestlers,
Mm-hmm.
and just say one good thing, a statement about him, and something. Or I was thinking during a WrestleMania 1 or 2, Paul Heyman is in the ring with all the ECW guys and ladies there, and
Mm-hmm.
they just have like a segment and talking, and Paul Heyman tells how he got ECW and what it means to him, and now that he's there in Philly again, and that would be big, something really cool.
That would be. Yeah, that's a really good idea, actually. That would be cool to see something like that going back to his. I guess different people see different things that he has done as his crowning glory, and a lot of people would say probably ECW was one of them. They'd have to say it's one of them. He's done so much, but that was so unique, So and that it's in Philly, there's got to be an ECW flavor to it. So that's a really cool idea that you just had. So that's cool. Get
Hmm.
everybody, get as many of the original guys as they can, going back to the start. That'd be cool. So
Yeah.
yeah.
uh, and since it's in your hometown,
Mm-hmm.
and you are you were in the ECW yourself, not the his ECW, but you
Right.
were in Eastern. But
Yes.
are you possibly thinking of going there to WrestleMania?
I'm not because it's just the crowds and everything are going to be insane. I would go uh, to see some people. I mean, I still know some people there. I know some people. Um, I don't think I'd go and sit in the crowd, but if I could, definitely. I don't know if it's going to be on. Well, it's pay per view, but it'll probably be on Peacock not long after, so I'll probably just wind up watching it there. But I do know people that are going for sure. So a friend,
Yeah.
yeah, one of my best friends has a podcast, and he did a podcast with a man who is in a couple of tribute bands. He's in a Kiss tribute band and an Iron Maiden tribute band. Long story short, this guy's Tiffany Stratton's dad. And so
For
my
real?
friend, yeah, and my friend who does the podcast now, because of this, he's gotten really tight with her parents. So he's probably going to go to WrestleMania with them. And they're like, oh, and you can, you can, if they ever, there was another event he was going to go to, and he said, oh, you can stay at our place, and it's the craziest thing. So he's friends with Tiffany Stratton's parents, and now he may be going to WrestleMania for free and just sit with them. So small world.
Wow, that you just telling me that shocked me because that's awesome. Because my favorite band is Kiss, and
Oh yeah, okay, there you go.
I I recently went to see them for their last tour, what they say their last tour,
Hmm.
because
Yeah,
they
right.
always have last after last. But yeah, I just seen them like
That's cool.
September. So yeah, is he in like Dress to Kill?
I'm not sure what I know. He plays Ace Frehley. I'm not sure which band, which tribute band it is, but I do know he's Ace. And then in the Iron Maiden one, he's obviously he's a guitarist, so he's one of the guitarists. And then her mom, I forget what her mom does, but yeah, it's funny. He's got this whole friendship with her parents, independent of her, and it's just the weirdest thing. So,
Wow.
but yeah, your listeners may find that interesting. But yeah, he does a podcast called Footsteps in the Attic. It's all like paranormal stuff, and or sometimes he'll have. He's had me on a few times, or he'll have people not associated with the paranormal. But it's a cool podcast. But yeah,
Yeah, I'll definitely have to go try to find that one with Tiffany's dad because that I'd definitely be interested in watching that.
yeah, I think he has two with him. So I can send you a link. I'll send you a link. Definitely.
All right, yeah, thank you.
Sure.
So now back into some other questions.
Hmm.
If you could go back in time and wrestle anyone that's passed away, who would that be?
Oh wow. Someone that I haven't wrestled before that's passed away. Um, maybe, geez, I'm trying to think who I could. I'm gonna say maybe like Kurt Hennig, maybe Mr. Perfect or uh, Beautiful Bobby Eaton too. Um, those guys don't wrestle like me at all, but I do more like power stuff. But guys like that work, can bump and sell and do all that stuff so well, that I think that would be great. I don't know if I would have want. It'd have been cool to have wrestled Andre. Um, I probably would have been beyond terrified, but um, just to say that you did that would be amazing. I saw him live, and uh, there's nothing like I've never seen anything like him before. And I've been right next to Big Show, and he's colossal. And the Undertaker, I don't know, Andre was something else. So yeah, I would say guys like that, maybe Andre or somebody like a great worker like a Bobby Eaton or Mr. Perfect who can work who can work with anybody, and when any whatever I couldn't do, they can fill in. so well with anything. They can make anybody look like $1 million. So I guess guys like that. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, definitely. Who is or was like your top dream opponent just in general?
If I'm really reaching for the stars, I would have loved to have wrestled Ric Flair at some point. Um, he was, as you know, like the last great territorial champion, traveling champion, world champion, and just his style. And I loved his matches, and I loved how he worked with all different kind of guys and always had great matches. And I guess that would be have been a dream of mine to have been able to wrestle Ric Flair at some point.
Yep.
So
I think that would be like a lot of wrestlers just to wrestle Ric Flair. I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, it was dream. I remember being a kid and mowing the grass and listening to my music and just thinking how cool that would be to wrestle Ric Flair. I just man. So we have our dreams.
Yep. Who would you number to your three top favorite opponents in your career?
Um, I would say as far as um, independent talents like Derek Domino, Jimmy Janetti. Uh, there's so many I'm going to be forgetting. The Samoans, Lloyd is. Do you know L.A. Smooth, Lloyd? Any of them are just great to work with. Oh man, I did a lot of work with Edge and Christian Cage, who are still on top now. Um, I know that's more than three, but there's just so many. It's hard to narrow it down, because you like different guys for different reasons. But Larry Zabisco was great to wrestle. Where we had really good chemistry together. I wrestled him a number of times. So there's so many names. So again, I know that's more than three.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I mean, you can't always narrow it down to three. I mean, there's a lot of wrestlers out there.
Millions, it seems.
Do you usually get along or become friends with most of your opponents?
I'd say so. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd say so. Especially guys you work with a lot. There's that bond that's formed, that trust. You've probably heard that a million times. All the interviews you do, it's you go out there and you do your thing, and you're trusting him, and vice versa. And so you do develop that bond. So yeah, mostly friends um, or at least just friendly acquaintances most of the time. You see them and handshake and hug and hey man, how's it going? How's this or that? So yeah, I would say.
Hmm. If you could make a Survivor Series match, including you with four wrestlers that are still alive to this day from any era, who would you choose as partners?
Oh my god. Team of five, so myself and four others.
Yep.
Um, wow. I would say like a dream team. I would probably pick Bret Hart. Boy, oh boy, that's tough. Let's see. Bret Hart, Barry Windham. Oh boy, picking a lot of speedsters here. Ricky Steamboat, and then I could do some power stuff, and we do need one more big power anchor. Oh man, let's say Don Morocco. So I could have some speed, some power, some psychology in there. Maybe guys like that. So I know I'm going. To me, old school That's the way to go. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'll put those names down there.
that's that's a great team.
Thanks.
Would you rather be in a street fight or a death match?
Do you mean like a street fight outside of wrestling, or like a wrestling, like a booked street fight?
Yeah, wrestling street fight.
Okay. Street fight, I would say. Yeah, definitely. I've done actually was I think my last match was a street fight match before I had to hang it up. I believe it was. Yeah. So
Hmm.
those are fun. I mean, you get knocked around pretty good, um, but they're fun. You know, you get to take out some aggression and stuff. Deathmatch, I have very little experience with. I was in Combat Zone for a short period and did a barbed wire chain match with Zandig. That's about as hardcore as I got. But I've done a lot of cage matches and stuff, and all kinds of different matches like that. But street fights are cool. I would go with that any day.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure your match with John Zandig was your only CZW match, correct?
Yes, I did a bodyguard gimmick, so I did a lot of promos and stuff like that, and I was brought in as Lobo's bodyguard, and then I was really injured during that little run. I was there for like 6 months, but I was nursing a bad injury in my neck and arm. But that match with Zandig, yeah, that's on YouTube. Actually, I think I know my get myself getting fireballed right in the mush. That's on there from that match. I had that match somewhere on tape. I got a huge chunk of hair pulled out during that thing, and you could see it on the
Oh,
because it was on TV that match. And he whacks me in the head. He just wound the chain around his hands and glommed me over the head with it, and a big hunk of my hair came out with it. So
wow.
remember that one?
So, for your makeup as Glen Osbourne, did you do that yourself or did you have like a professional makeup artist?
No, I did that myself actually. So you get experience after years, and I had gone to art school and learned about the paints and stuff, and um, yeah, so I just always did it myself. If I had a little time before the show, I'd make it a little more colorful or elaborate, and but sometimes if I was in a rush, I'd just slap on basic black and go.
Yeah,
So I was lucky because I know
because
some people do have people do it for them, but nah, I never did.
yeah, like Boogeyman, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he does his makeup himself, and then
I'd heard
Demolition.
that. That's a pretty
I mean,
elaborate gimmick too, so that's pretty cool.
yeah, the fact that he can do that makeup still to this day, like great, and
That's
then
awesome.
his body physique is still in like prime shape, and then
Yeah,
he's he has like his whole gear still. I mean, it's just awesome.
that's phenomenal and good for him because I know he's not a spring chicken these days. So good for him. Good on him. That's awesome. I
Hmm.
see pictures of him, and yeah, you're right. That's a hell of a gimmick.
Yeah, I got to meet, well, not meet him. I missed my opportunity to meet him at a show here down in Wisconsin, and he was one of my dream wrestlers of meeting. And uh, I was gonna, I was trying to catch up with Demolition was at the show.
Oh, cool.
There was the Berserker, naming some older names, like, but
Yeah.
then there was like Damien Sandow, and then like
Hmm.
some others. So I was trying to get to them first so I could meet the best for last
Yeah.
because he was my dream of meeting.
That's
But
so
then
cool.
there was, yeah. And then the show was starting. So I was like, I heard that the wrestlers were going to come back out after the show.
Hmm.
And the Berserker told me that too. But then after the show, most of the wrestlers didn't come out. So
Hmm.
I missed my I missed my one and only opportunity to meet Boogeyman, and so I
Oh,
never got to meet him.
oh, that sucks. I do
Yeah,
see that he does a lot of these cons and everything. He does a lot of wrestling cons and stuff. So, there's always a chance. Seems like he's at a lot of those. I'm sure
yeah,
he will at some point.
yeah. Would you rather be in a blindfolded match, handcuffed to your opponent, or a dog collar?
Dog collar, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done some of those before, and those are cool. Chain matches, dog collars, anything like that's cool.
Mm-hmm. And I pretty sure like the dog collar matches fit your persona really well too. I mean,
They do. Yeah, I like, yeah, anything like that are like, because I like them because you can work them too. It's not, you can work the psychology into those kinds of matches. It's not just the blood and the gruesome. That's part of it, but those matches are fun to work as far as that end of it goes too, and the hardcore end of it. But you know,
yeah. Bringing it back up on the makeup scheme of things, because
hmm
I forgot to ask this because I got so into the Boogeyman story. But
hmm
I actually I do I have like my own persona that I do in backyard at my trampoline that I do called Shorter Von Dyke, Mr. Hardcore Psycho Shorter Von Dyke.
hmm
And um I'm like I like the hardcore wrestling type of
hmm
stuff. So when I get into wrestling, I want that's what kind of I want to do kind of. And so um I'd have like makeup that I do.
Oh, cool.
And so I was wondering if you had like any advice on how to do the makeup well.
Do you use acrylic paint?
I use like face paint and then I also have um acrylic paint. Yeah.
Okay. I always use the acrylic. I would try to get Liquitex brand acrylic. It dries on your face. I used to use grease paint back long ago, and it just smears everywhere. But the acrylic, it'll dry on your face, and then it just comes off with soap and warm water. It's really easy to take off. But I definitely have to set aside a little bit of time to get. I try to keep everything as symmetrical as I can. So I kind of have something in mind that I'll do around my eyes, and um, depending on if I'm carrying more weight and my face is a little heavier, I'd do something a little different than if I'm a little more trimmed down. Um, I would tend to have more points and things to look a little more evil or whatever. But what kind of a do you have a particular pattern that you like to do or anything?
So I'm yeah. So I do like a heel persona, like a very, very big heel persona. And so but yeah, I have like it's kind of like on my eye here around, but it's
Okay.
like all black and it goes down to like here, kind of like a raindrop, but it goes out more
Okay.
all around on both
Okay.
eyes.
Well, that sounds cool. And you
Yeah.
do yours yourself.
Yep.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I would recommend that kind of paint, and then a brush that's easy to, it's not too fat or anything. I would use one that's kind of in the middle. I'd kind of use the same one, but if I needed to do anything fine, I'd have a finer one. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And that's the paint I would actually that kind of paint. Road Warrior Hawk turned me onto that stuff because, like I said, I used to use the grease paint, and he was coming to ECW in the Eastern Championship days, and I met him, and I was painting my face, and he walked into the dressing room and I'm painting up, and it was just me and him. And I thought, oh my God, he's going to think like, I'm like some goof ripping ripping him off. And he was the nicest guy in the world. He introduced, he said, "Oh, hey, I'm Mike. It's not," and so he was, "Oh, what do you use there?" And I told him it was the grease paint, and but it was getting everywhere. And he said, "Here, try this stuff." And he showed me, and so I got my paint, the idea from Road Warrior Hawk. So how cool is that? So that was the paint I used for the rest of my time in wrestling.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So now I pass it off to you. Liquitex acrylic paint.
Thank you.
Sure.
So, is there any piece of merch that you have or had that was like sold out pretty quickly?
Yeah, shirts never lasted very long. Uh, pictures go. I used to, this is back, way back. I would have like buttons, just anything to try to, you try to make a little extra or something like that. But now I just pretty much, if I get requests for pictures, I just give them out. Now I have some leftovers and I don't wrestle anymore. So, I just give them out for free.
Yeah,
But
I'd be
yeah, so,
interested in one.
oh yeah, I'll send you one, no problem. Just let me know your address and I'll send one out. But yeah, those were t-shirts always went. So that was a good way to, get a little extra income, when you're trying to do wrestling for a living, is to have some merch to sell, as you know. Bands are the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So the merch table, the gimmick table.
Yeah. I mean, a little more extra money that you can make in your
Hmm.
pocket.
And it is cool to meet the fans too. I mean, that's always cool, So I always did enjoy that. I was always, when it was appropriate for me to go out at intermission or whatever, and sign pictures, and that was always a nice thing to do. So
Mm-hmm. Do you still like do any like type of conventions or like appearances for like signings or anything of that sort?
I haven't. I've been invited to some. I haven't gone because the last few years have been for me about rehabbing physically. I was in pretty bad shape for a while, so a lot of bodily damage from all the bumping and heavy weightlifting and just general abuse in the body. And then during COVID, I got a really bad infection, and um, so um, sorry, I lost my train of thought again. My God, too many concussions. What? Could you repeat the question?
I asked. Jeez, okay.
That's all right. My mind just went. I started talking about that, and then there's like so many injuries and all that crap that were just flooded my brain that oh, about the conventions and stuff. That's right. I've
Oh
been
yeah.
invited to some, and I would absolutely go. I only actually just started driving again not terribly long ago, like within the last year. So as my mobility has gotten better, yeah, I'm definitely open for doing stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, when I feel ready to go do something like that, I think I will. And not even to like sell anything. It would just to be to catch up with people. I've been out of wrestling for a while, and that's one thing I do. Social media is great for keeping in touch with people over, you know, keeping the community of wrestling together and going like that. So yeah, I would love to get out sometimes and see some folks. It's been a long time.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Definitely bring you here to Wisconsin one time for a wrestling event.
Wow. So yeah, you're out in Wisconsin. No kidding.
Yeah.
That's cool. What kind do you have independence around there? Around where you are?
Um, I mean, yeah, but not like big ones and not
Yeah.
like much.
Okay.
So here locally, like where I live, um, there's this one company called UTL Under the Lights Entertainment,
Hmm.
and he runs wrestling shows, but it's not that big. Um,
Okay.
but I've been going to them shows for a long time and still do to this day. Um,
Cool.
um, I mean, there's one down in Milwaukee. Well, there's actually like a couple down in Milwaukee, and then there's some here and there in like different small towns here in Wisconsin
Okay.
that I'm not like 100% familiar with.
Okay.
But yeah, a lot of the shows get big names up here sometimes.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool.
So is there any time a fan has seen you in public and got like super surprised and or excited?
Um. Yeah. One time I was going into the Philly airport and someone recognized me and was kind of um certainly not as much as if I had regular TV coverage. I try to you know but yeah. There have been a few times, or people go, "Ooh, outside of if you mean outside of wrestling, yeah, it's happened a few times, but you know, at shows obviously, but not. But yeah, it's happened in restaurants or whatever, and you just kind of hey, and sign a piece of paper or something. So
Yeah.
I've been out of it for a long time. So
I mean, yeah. And it's probably hard to recognize without the makeup too sometimes.
yeah, even fans at shows. That's been actually one nice thing is because I was like I said earlier, I liked watching wrestling live. So when I was on a show, I'd kind of like to watch at the curtain, and it was cool because a lot of times they wouldn't register that it was me because I had no paint on, so you could get around a little more freely.
Yeah. That's one good thing about like masks or face paint. You can just walk around in casual clothes without the mask or makeup and nobody know who you are.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's a nice perk of the. Can be a bit of a pain in the butt to put on and stuff, but yeah, gives you a little bit of anonymity.
Yep. Who would you say is like your favorite horror character and favorite horror movie if you have one?
Oh wow. I was always partial as far as like the murderers. I like Michael Myers. He was always sort of a sentimental favorite of mine. Horror, wow, movies. Jeez, there's a lot of good ones. Um, I like a lot of the psychological horror movies too. Are good. The Conjuring is really good. Of more recent kind of movies in the last 10 years, Babadook is really good. A good slasher flick's good. I always like those. You know, it's a fun
Yeah.
genre.
Yeah, I say my favorite is Chucky.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Child's Play. Oh my god. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a psycho. That's that's the idea. But yeah, that's a good one. That's a solid one for sure. Freddy Krueger's
Yeah.
great too.
Yeah, he's really good too. Yep. Definitely like the originals, like Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger,
Yeah,
Leatherface, all of those. I
Jason.
mean,
Yeah,
yeah, Jason.
yeah,
I mean, obviously those are really good.
yeah, yeah. Those are the seminal ones. Jason's been a go-to Halloween costume of mine for years. When I'm forced to go to a Halloween party, I would just It's a pretty easy one. Pretty easy costume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or now that you're retired, I mean, you could dress up as Glen Osbourne.
Yeah, right. I think that's one reason I don't love Halloween parties is because, for so many years, like I was always dressing up and like that. So kind of after a while, Halloween loses its luster because you're just always dressing up in some Halloween costume to wrestle, it seems like.
True, yeah. What is generally your favorite music to listen to in your spare time?
I mean, I'll always be, I'm a lifelong card carrying metal guy. So I listen to all kinds of metal and rock and usually it's all rock based stuff. But I mean, there's some calmer stuff too that I like. But yeah, usually it's some version of metal or rock, pretty much across the board. So,
Yeah.
but I always return to that for one reason or another. Kiss was actually one of the first bands I started listening to when I was a kid. I think Kiss and
Oh,
Van
wow.
Halen, yeah, were like the two that I started back way, 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 way back. So, and then it blossoms from there. A lot of people are like that with Kiss, like they find them early on. I think people like the gimmick, they respond to that too in the songs.
Yeah.
So it's cool you got to see them.
Yeah, it's was like my dream of meeting them and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, like seeing them because I mean, it was in like a small town here in Wisconsin, and like in a small random town that you would have never thought of in Crandon, and it was like,
Hmm.
and it was out like in like a farm, like you go down on like boring roads, and it was kind of weird, but like it was for like the Potawatomi tribe
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool.
based, and the only people that could do a meet and greet with them was the Potawatomi tribe of VIPs.
Okay.
But I was really trying my best to do the meet and greet with them, but
Yeah.
I couldn't. It was just cool to see them uh, in person and on stage.
That is awesome. Yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, they really are legends. So it's phenomenal. Wow.
Yep.
Maybe you'll get to see them again sometime. I don't know if they're going to really ever retire. So you never know.
Yeah. I mean, I doubt that they probably will. I mean, I could probably see them coming back again.
Yeah. Why not?
Do you know the wrestler Demon Dale Torberg?
I think we're friends on Facebook, but I've never met him. But I know who I certainly do know who he is. Yeah, absolutely. Do you know him?
Yeah, he did
Yeah,
like the makeup based stuff of Gene Simmons.
yeah, that's cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, you must. Do
Yeah.
you like? Did you like that gimmick, the Kiss Demon, being a Kiss fan?
Yeah, I really like that
Yeah,
gimmick a lot.
yeah, that's really cool.
One of my favorite gimmicks, probably. And then um, I'm pretty sure in WCW he had Kiss actually perform during his entrance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They did. They played on that. I do remember that had happened. That's pretty wild. They have the Kiss
Hmm.
coffin and everything that you can buy.
Wow, yeah. If a movie was made about your career, who would you want to play you?
um, Did you ever see the movie Goon? It's a hockey movie. It stars Sean William Scott. You know who that is? He was in American Pie. He played Stifler.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
My head is on like the goon from the WWE right now.
Oh no, yeah, Bill Irwin. No, it's a hockey movie, called Goon. I'm trying to think where else you might know him from. But anyway, my wife says he would be good to play me if he bulked up. Um, and he's, I don't know other than that. That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Do you ask everybody that? You must get some pretty wild answers on that one.
Yeah, I do ask everybody that, and yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's pretty
I
wild.
get I get some that I know and that I could see
Hmm.
in them, and then some that I'm like, I don't really know, but like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I could be like, oh, Jason Momoa, but that wouldn't be realistic. So I'm trying to pick somebody that I think, kind of would resemble, have a somewhat similar resemblance. Yeah, that's all I can really think of at the moment.
yeah. If you got to choose the stipulation for your match, what stipulation would you choose?
I'd probably go for a chain match. I definitely like chain matches, working chain matches. I've always had good. Well, I've had good ones where you go for a pin or the tag the four corners. I've always done well with those. I like creative finishes for those kinds of matches you can come up with. Um, yeah, I would go with a chain if I only had to pick one.
Yeah. Like, what do you mean by like a chain? Like a chain, like a wrapped around your neck and onto the neck
Uh,
of the
to the
opponent?
wrist to wrist. You have the strap, and then it's a wrist to wrist type of chain. I like that. Yeah,
Okay.
I prefer
Yeah.
that. I've done dog collars and wrist to wrist, and I like the wrist to wrist. Something about that. I've done bull rope matches that way too. There's something about the freedom of that and being able to like use it to choke and whip and throw and all that kind of stuff that I like.
Yeah. And you also get like room to move around as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You think for the
And
dog collar, you're connected here, and it's connected here. There's less room to do stuff with the chain. If it's your wrist to wrist, you can, wind a guy in for a clothesline. I just feel like you can do more.
yeah,
Yeah.
I I agree. Yeah.
Shoot him off the ropes if you need to. You can just, I don't know. It's just more hang him over the ropes, do all that kind of stuff. A
Mhm.
lot of good spots you can do with the chain.
Yep. And I'm pretty sure there was in the poster that I made, you had a chain in your hand for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
chain match.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
What would you say has been like one of the funniest things a fan has said to you before?
Oh wow. One fan thought I looked like George the Animal Steel. I thought that was odd because we look nothing alike. Um, Gimmick wise, oh geez. Oh, other than that, like uh, that's another one that'll come. I'd have to sit on that one for a while. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of fans want to know what you're going to do in your next match with so and so. Are you going to, rip his head off or do this or that? They like to do that kind of stuff. But as far as something that just like
Yeah.
blew my hair back, like shocking, I don't, probably there's not too much that leaps to mind. So
Yeah. I mean, the George Animal Steel one, I don't know where they got that from.
yeah, like that's odd. Uh, that's very very strange, but who knows? Maybe they had vision problems.
Or maybe
I would
they
get a lot of
just
suggestions for theme songs too, like, "Oh, use this song or that song." I'm like, "Okay, thanks," and I usually wouldn't. It didn't fit. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You were going to say something.
yeah. Um, the oh yeah, the George Animal Steel. So about that, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, because yeah, I kind of forgot what I was gonna say.
That's all right.
Sorry.
No, no problem. Yeah, maybe did you ever take chair shots to the head or pile drivers or anything? Maybe you got scrambled.
I took a chair shot to the back. I mean,
Mm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Those aren't fun either.
yep. What would you say has been like a best fan compliment you have received, either at like a show or out somewhere or at like a convention?
I would say probably there was a fan who wrote online some kind of he had a column. I can't remember his name. Jeez, but who had written in his column, he complimented my psychology and compared my psychology to Jake Roberts, which I found to be a huge compliment. I don't wrestle anything like Jake Roberts, but I he saw a connection as far as our psychological stuff. So that was a huge compliment. And he thought for a guy my size that I was graceful in the ring. He thought, and I thought that he described he described my matches as a freight train ballet. He called it, which I was, okay, that sounds amazing. I don't thank you for that. So if whoever that young man was is listening out there somewhere, I do thank him for that. So that's probably like the biggest compliment I ever got. You know, or you remind me of fill in name that's complimentary, that kind of thing. So it's
Mm-hmm.
always nice. It's nice to be appreciated rather than loathed.
Yep.
So
He chose a unique form of words.
yeah.
Which wrestler has given you the best advice and or compliment?
um, a lot of the legends. Bam Bam Bigelow one time gave myself and Jimmy Janetti some up close advice about when laying it in, especially when the people are close by. Really, putting something into it as far as that goes, tightening things up. Afa of the Wild Samoans, he was teaching me one time about comebacks. You got to come up. You got to be aggressive. You got to. I remember one time Rick Steamboat was in the dressing room uh, of an ECWA show, and it wasn't to me directly, but it was to all of us. And he said, don't hesitate. If you're going in on your opponent, if he's in the corner and you look to the people, he said, don't waste time. He's like, just go for it. Aggressive. You've got to, so things like that you take when you, especially, you learn from everybody, even if it's not a good match, even if it's somebody, you're learning what not to do. You do learn from everybody. So everyone you learn from, you take a piece here and there. And guys that were, big names and stuff, certainly take their advice. And I was always taught to keep your mouth shut and your ears open and learn. Uh, you know, so there's a lot of good advice to be learned if you just shut up sometimes. The younger generation I have not been around this, but I've heard that a lot of them are not real receptive to some of the ideas that some of the old schoolers have, which I think is a mistake. But yeah, I mean, any piece of advice like that I got, I think only ever helped me improve.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
And definitely like being in the ring with like a legend
Yeah.
helps you, not like word type advice, but like if that legend in like the ring could help you more in wrestling.
Yeah, I've told the story on another podcast. I wrestled Tito Santana the first time in 1994. He had just come out of the WWF, and I wrestled him for in Delaware. And he said I'd wrestled a few names before him, but he said to me when I said, what would you like to do? He said, you call it to me, and then if something doesn't make sense, then I'll step in, but you run it and I'll just follow. And I mean, I learned more in that one match. It was amazing for him to put that confidence in me, but also for me to know that he was there. Like if I put something together that didn't make sense, that he was there as a safety net. But for him to let me run the match when I was a kid, like that was incredible, uh, and an amazing learning experience. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome to have like veterans and legends have you take over a match. That would be awesome.
It is, and when they treat you as an equal, and then as I got more, further in the business and more of a veteran myself, and you work with a lot of the legends, and I mean, you get to know them and stuff, and they trust you, and you trust them, and you can go out and have some really good matches that way. When they know they're
Yeah.
not working with some independent schlub, that they know you can work, and I like, it's nice to earn that kind of respect from the old school
Yep,
guys that have been there to the top.
for sure. Did you like or prefer being a heel or babyface more in the wrestling?
I like being a heel better. I've done both a lot, but being the heel, it's more fun, I think, for one thing. And usually the heels will call the match, and I think that is a strength of mine, is like putting a match together. And like I said, I think the psychology end of it, like putting a match together, is something I could do well. So uh, it's a whole synergy that kind of has to happen for things to come off, you know. Um, so yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Was there ever a time in your career you ever got kicked out of a wrestling show you were wrestling at?
No, no. Fortunately, I never did anything to get out of line, or I always tried to be a reliable, good guy, and not I didn't have bad habits that I brought to bear, so no, fortunately. I've seen it happen though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys having, like, trying to hide beer in their lockers or do stuff like that,
Sounds like Sandman.
but I I never saw him get thrown out of anywhere, but I haven't seen him in a long. I probably haven't seen him since like 2002 ish or something like that. I want to say it's been a long time, but
Yeah.
he's a character. So, like I
Hmm.
said, we trained. We were in the same class. we were in the same wrestling class. He started wrestling maybe like a month or two before me. But yeah, I got to see him a lot back then, and to see him, he was Mr. Sandman. You probably know all that first, and then became the Sandman. Everybody knows now. But he was always a cool guy to me. I mean, he treated me great. I'd like to catch up with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And like my Facebook profile is with the ECW originals. I met Sandman at that Wisconsin show that Boogeyman was at, actually. And
Cool.
Francine was there.
Mm-hmm.
Devon was there. Devon Dudley.
Mm-hmm.
Al Snow.
Cool.
Bill Alfonso. And there was like a whole photo shoot that you could get with each, or with all of them together, like an ECW photo shoot.
Oh,
so
wow.
I got that, and I got to get a photo with all of them together, which is my
great.
Facebook and Instagram profile. And
great crew, great group of people.
Yes, definitely. And as I was waiting for my autograph from Sandman, he was outside just like smoking, and so I had to wait for him,
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, they had to go get him. And but other from that, when I was getting my photo from him, I was walking off, and he like slightly hit me in the head with his kendo stick.
A love tap, just tap. That's funny.
Yep.
Yeah, I never felt that cane, but I've heard that it stung something fierce. I can only imagine, getting whacked with that thing, that kendo stick. Jeez, oh man.
Yep. And he brings that kendo stick everywhere and anywhere. I mean,
yeah,
everywhere he goes, he brings that.
Yeah, I heard. A good friend of mine is Donnie Allen, who was in ECW for the whole run, and he said that he got caned by Hack Sandman, and he said that his aim with the stick is incredible. He said no matter what condition he was in, he always had dead on aim with that stick. So, I can imagine if he travels with it everywhere, he probably is. It's probably like a limb at this point.
Yeah,
an appendage. Yeah.
I mean, I think he has more than one, because I see him because he gets in the ring sometimes and just beats people with him.
Yeah.
So I think he has like more than one.
I would think. Yeah.
Was there any time you have actually witnessed like a crowd member coming out of the crowd and attack you, or you witnessed it personally from somebody else?
Actually, I was attacked by a fan. I was in Philly. Actually, it was after the match, and I had been wrestling against Jimmy Janetti. I was the heel, and I left him laying in the ring and left the referee laying. And as I got out of the ring and started to walk away, I felt somebody hit me across the back with a chair. And I turned around and I thought that my opponent, Jimmy Janetti, got out of the ring and hit me with a chair, but he was still in the ring. So I turned around and looked, and there was some dude standing there. He was actually in a suit. Like, I guess maybe he had come from work. This is an older dude, like with gray hair and everything, and he's standing there with it. It was this guy, and I turned around and security jumped on him and threw him out. So yeah, so I experienced that personally. A fan whacking me with a chair, and
Wow.
And I've seen it. Yeah, and I've seen stuff like that happen before too. But I guess it's good. It means you have good heat.
Yeah, you're doing your job good as a heel. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, really.
Just earns it. It shows that you're doing a good job, but it just
Exactly.
earns him, it earns the fan a spot to never coming back to a wrestling show again. I mean,
Yeah. They used to in the old days in the Mid South territory, if a fan did that and they'd get arrested, they get brought back to the dressing room and the wrestler would get 5 minutes with them or something like that. And I'd hear these stories about, somebody jumping a wrestler, and Jim Cornette told a funny story about some guy jumping on Hercules Hernandez and Hercules bursting back through the door and smacking the guy so hard, looked like he got shot. Jim said his head smacked the wall. Hercules smacked him, and then the guy's head smacked the floor, and it was just, So no, I never saw anything like that. But yeah, I've seen fans. It's not like the old days where there were riots and stuff, but fans can still get pretty freaky. Something. Remember? I guess it was a few years ago when that fan tackled Bret Hart during the Hall of Fame ceremony for the Hart Foundation. That was crazy.
yeah,
My God.
yeah,
He got choked out too, I think.
yeah. I
Or
don't think Bret
making-
Hart did
No, he
anything.
just looked shocked, and he was like, but yeah, somebody grabbed him and choked him out and hit him. So hopefully
Yeah,
he'll
I'm
be
not sure who that was.
Yeah, I forget.
Yeah,
Oh well.
but yeah, I think that was like, I don't know. I was gonna say that was probably the last time WWE had a fan attack, but no, that
Yeah.
wasn't on Raw. There was one where this guy came out and attacked Seth Rollins on the ramp. I don't know if you've seen that, but
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, I did see that. That's crazy.
yeah,
People are nuts.
that's yeah, that was my first ever time actually witnessing it on TV, someone attacking a wrestler. I mean, it was like,
Yeah,
whoa, okay.
yeah. It's incredible.
If you could have chosen out of all the ECW valets they had to have they had back then to have valet you, who would you choose?
As a valet, I would probably take. I would pick Francine actually in ECW because I know her. I've always considered her a friend, so I've known her for a long time. So absolutely her, and she's always a pro. So I mean, that would be an honor, definitely.
Yeah, and honestly, I could definitely see her fitting with your persona.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I think that would look good.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's as much room for managers and valets anymore as there used to be. But yeah,
Mm-hmm. Or I was also thinking like Angel Amoroso wouldn't be a bad
Angel would be
manager.
awesome. Yeah, Angel's another one that I mean, I love Angel. I've known her forever too. Um, yeah, she would have a great look. I could with the paint and stuff, the makeup that she would do. Oh, that would be wonderful. Yeah, we've never done that before. I wonder why. That would have worked out really well. But yeah, I know Angel for many, many, many years. Very, very sweet. As is Francine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But and yeah, they're both legends up here in Philly for sure.
Yep. And yeah, just thinking about the Angel Amoroso now more, that would have been like perfect.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
she had the crown, she had the whole cape, she had just like
yeah.
the
The
whole.
gimmick, the look. Yeah, 100.
Mhm.
I agree totally. Yeah. Anyone that had that kind of a look or a bent. I had a manager called the Master. His name's Rocco Mazza, and he was all black, black slick back hair. He kind of looked like Grandpa Munster. He had like black gloves and black suit and just fit. We just fit together so well. Anyone with a dark sort of look, I think would work out nicely. So
Yeah.
I was managed by Luna before, Luna Vachon, who I also really liked. She was a friend too. That was pretty cool. And Fallen Angel one time, who was Nancy Benoit. One time I got
Hmm.
involved in a match that she was involved in, so I worked with her just a little bit too. But I guess I'm rambling a little bit. Yeah. So I also knew
Yeah.
what Tammy Sitch too, from way back in the day, and
Yeah.
that's sad too. So
Hmm.
she always treated me really nicely. She was always really sweet to me, and I go by how people treat me. So again, she was always sweet. It's really a shame.
Hmm. Did you hear of like the stories of her back in the day with Chris Gandino during your time there?
Not so much then. We started seeing her in the TWA days before ECW. She would come around with Chris. And then, yeah, she was around ECW a lot. And then she wound up going down to work for Smoky Mountain. Or, I mean, yeah. Uh, I started hearing stories, I guess, yeah, sometime in like the early 90s. I guess I started hearing some things. Um, but again, my experience with her was always really nice. So yeah,
Yeah. She was doing good there for the past like 3 years, I would say.
yeah.
And I remember she was doing a virtual signing, and she was auctioning off her jail suit that she had, and she was saying, "This is going to be you're never going to see this ever again. So get this while you can,
Oh
and I'll
man,
sign it and everything." And it's just sad to see where she is now, you know.
I know. I mean, and it's terrible, and for that poor guy, that she killed, Jesus, and then, but that's a big sentence that she got, 17 plus years. Jeez, so,
Yeah.
a lot of time to think.
Mhm. I feel like we're just probably all going to forget about her at some point,
Hmm.
because of all the time she's going to be there. And then
Yeah,
it's randomly going to pop up sometime that she's coming out. And then we're going to be like, wait, who? And then we're going to
yeah,
have to like
yeah,
do a, yeah.
yeah. Well, I heard then, like even when she gets out, she's going to have like 8 years of house of probation or something like that. So that I heard like she's not going to be totally free of stuff till she's in her 70s probably. So that's a shame. Really a
Man.
shame. Waste of a life.
Hmm. And she didn't really look in good shape either, as
No,
she was probably not healthy, yeah.
no, it looked like the lifestyle had caught up with her sadly. So yeah.
Hmm. So how did you get your wrestling name, Glen Osbourne, and then how did you get your nickname, the Madman from the Badlands?
I got Osborne because my first show that I ever wrestled on, nobody thought to give me a name, and Johnny Hotbody, who was one of the wrestlers that was he was already a legend in Philly when I started, but he thought at the time I looked like Ozzy Osbourne, so he said, how about Glenn Osborne?" And it works for today. They were going to change it, but they said it works for today. So I went out there and it just stuck. And from then on, it was just that. Madman from the Badlands, I don't think has aged all that well. A friend of mine gave me that nickname way back. He just came up with it, and I thought it sounded pretty cool. Then back in 2003, a promoter started billing me as the Beast, Glen Osbourne, and I thought that sounded a little. There's other beasts. There's Dan Severn and Brock Lesnar, and you know, uh, I thought that was all right. It was. I needed to change. I thought Madman from the Badlands. It was cool, but it sounds a little dated. So I thought the Beast was more kind of generic and open somehow. So I use that from like '03 on. But I use both. But it was always Glen Osborne with either the Beast or the Madman. But any name I ever used was given to me. Even the paint, that wasn't my idea. I started wrestling really young, like when I was 18, and the Joel Goodhart, the promoter that started me, was like, "We got to do something to make you look not so baby faced." So that's how the paint started, and I just stuck with that
Wow.
too. Yeah.
What out of all the companies you have wrestled for, which one has been your like most favorite?
I've got to say there have been a ton that I really have liked working for and appreciated. My home base for many years was the ECWA, so that's the promotion. They have the Super 8 tournament, and they've just had a ton of great talent come through their doors over the decades. They've been running since 1967. It's the oldest running independent promotion in the country, and I worked there for many years. I had some of my best success there, so I would definitely say ECWA, and they're still running. I think their Super 8's coming up again, and if, I don't remember the date, and I would plug it if I remembered. But yeah, ECWA. It's not the same promoter now, but it's the same banner and some of the same folks. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's like Super 8 like their big huge like WrestleMania type show for them?
Yeah, it's a tournament. It's generally like a junior heavyweight tournament, but a lot of greats have competed in that and have won that. Some of the names are escaping me. Christopher Daniels, some of the guys of that caliber, who are just real workhorses, kind of guys that work Japan a lot and do that. They get booked into Super 8 a lot. You can look back at the history of it. It's been running since 1997, and there have been some huge names: Daniel Bryan, Paul London. I mean, I could just pull these names, keep pulling them out, and they've all been in the Super 8 tournament. So I don't know. I don't know who's in it this year, but it's a really great event. I've never competed in it. I was always more of a heavyweight kind of guy, but yeah, the '90s was different, man. It was like the golden age of the independents. Um, you know, WWE was down at that point, and ECW was getting so popular, it made people realize there was other options out there. So a lot of the independents started getting a bump in the crowds and everything. It was a really great time to be wrestling.
Yeah. And um about ECWA, you were like an original roster member there, correct?
That was in ECW, the original ECW. That was Eastern. ECWA, I started there in 1993, so they'd already been running for quite a while at that point. And then I
Yeah.
retired from there. My last match was there in 2011 in that promotion. So, yeah.
Yeah. If they ever asked you to like come back for anything, if you were like good to go and
Yeah.
good shape, would you possibly take up that offer?
Yeah. I mean, I'm open for just about it. I'm open for a lot of things. I'm always open minded about stuff. And yeah, sure. Yeah. I could do most things except actually wrestle at this point, I think.
Yeah. I mean, they could bring you in just to do like a little spot, like
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot I could do. I mean, I still train, I still work out all the time, and you know, I like to say you have to stay in shape to get old. You know, you have to. It's a sport, sort of. So I still hit the gym and everything, but yeah, I could come out like do the paint and like put on like a tank top or something and just kind of go out there and trip people and like do. I could probably get involved in a finish or something, but not anything too big.
Yeah, something where you're doing the harm, or like not harm, but like doing the thing to, I don't know how to word it, like you do like the move to them instead of them doing it to
Yeah,
you.
right. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, be the one to. Yeah, I agree. Call it like cost somebody a match or something. Yeah, I could do that definitely, but
Yeah.
bumping is probably out. I always fantasize that I could come back for one more match, but um, never say never. I don't think so. I don't think I'm in any condition to bump around or anything, but I could choke somebody, or something like that. But that'd be pretty boring just to watch me choke someone for 5 minutes.
They'd probably be dead at the end of the match.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm sure not going to be. I mean, the stuff that people, the stuff that's being done today. I sound like an old fogey, but my God, to watch the athleticism. I mean, they do stuff now. I couldn't even. I mean, first of all, I was never a high flyer, but I mean, it's amazing what they do now. I mean, some of it's. I just hope no one winds up. I always worked a pretty safe style. I was at high impact, like a lot of clothesline slamming and the kind of stuff like that. And I've got a lot of issues, so I can only imagine, when they're doing the stuff they're doing now, you know, it's gonna be rough down the line. So, but it's amazing to watch.
Yeah. And I mean, if you could have any last retirement match for sure, like a retirement match,
Mhm.
who would you want that to be against?
It'd have to be somebody that could make like cover up what I can't do, like smoke and mirrors, as they say. So I'd have to find somebody that could kind of do that. If I'm being realistic, I would probably have to say a friend of mine like Eddie Valentine. I don't know if you know who Eddie. He wrestled up around here a lot. He's in Florida now. I think he's associated with Gangrel's school. Anyway, even if you don't know him, he's an excellent, excellent worker I've known for many years. Someone like that who I would really trust. Or maybe Jimmy Janetti, who was my first opponent. If it was a chance to work like a big name or something, I would love to work with. I really did have a lot of good matches with Christian Cage. I think we had a good chemistry, and he's such a big star. So if I was going to go someone with who's like big now, who I have a history with, it'd probably be him.
Yeah,
You know,
that would,
um, I heard Mick Foley recently just say, and I've known him for a long time. He wants to drop 100 pounds. Did you hear that? He wants to drop 100 pounds and have run
yeah,
that last match when he's 60. So I was like, oh my God. God bless, more power to him if he can do that. And he said he wants it to be like a death match and, brutal and, because he made his name doing that. So I guess there's hope for all of
yeah.
us.
I mean, mankind Mick Foley is like half the definition of like hardcore wrestling. I mean, he's the one that kind of set the stage for hardcore wrestling.
Yeah. and I'll tell you something, and you've probably heard this. If I don't know if you ever interviewed him or not, but just a super nice guy. Yeah, down to earth. I've known him since 1990. We used to be on some shows together back then, and he was coming up, and I finally wrestled him in 1997 or 8 when he was doing Mankind. We had a match for the ECWA, and I have some pictures of that. They actually did an article on our match in Pro Wrestling Illustrated, or one of their sister magazines. So that was a highlight. So if he thinks he could do it, I would just worry for him. Other than that, God bless him.
Yeah, I would probably love to see him go back into doing a one more match. And
Yeah,
I think the company that would fit him best to do that last hardcore death match would probably definitely be GCW.
yeah. I'm hearing good things about them lately, so that would be a good place for him. Yeah, absolutely. Because it would not be WWE, certainly. They wouldn't
Yeah,
host.
no.
Oh, I think that's a little outside of the scope of what they'd want to present. But more power to him. The man is a
Hmm.
legend. God knows.
I would mention AEW, but like because with all the legends they bring into there and all of the big names they bring into AEW, but I don't think they're seeking to bring in the type of hardcore match he probably wants to do.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, I've seen some of his stuff from Japan, and his match with Terry Gordy, and things like that over there. The death match, hardcore stuff. That's like really, really, really like real hardcore wrestling. That's not because he's one of those guys too. He can work. People forget that he knows psychology, and he's a good worker too. So um, I almost feel like he brings almost like an honor to the deathmatch wrestling. Like he brings like a sort of I don't know if dignity is the right word, but he brings it's his presence or something. He's like a duck to water with that hardcore, with that style, you know. So
Yep, for sure. And if you could wrestle anywhere in the world, where would that be?
oh God, anywhere in the world, as in an arena or just like a region in general, or something.
Like a location?
Anywhere, anywhere that there's a good crowd, a hot crowd. I don't know. The South has always been awesome for that. Maybe somewhere down there. Maybe Florida. I'll retire down to Florida, so maybe down there somewhere. But
Yeah.
realistic, and Florida has always been a wrestling state. If there ever has been one. Philly though, that's where I started. So maybe somewhere around Philly. I can't really think. I can say that I've actually wrestled in ECW arena for ECW and for Combat
Oh,
Zone, so that's kind of unique. So maybe there or something. There's, I'm at the point where there's reunion shows happening, and I'm going to be going to a reunion show in August, and they're trying to put together a TWA tri-state slash ECW reunion at some point. So, you know, it'll be cool. Lots of stuff coming up.
now an ECW reunion show is what I've been wanting personally for a very, very long time. Like
Yeah.
Eastern and and Extreme Championship Wrestling together as like a reunion type show. Like they bring in each and every wrestler that they can. I mean,
Yeah. I think that'd be cool, because a lot of guys, there was a lot of crosstalk. A lot of the guys that were in Eastern were friends with guys in what became Extreme, vice versa. I know on the independents, guys that were in ECW, you you know, they still worked other independents too a lot of the time, like Axel Rotten. I wrestled him a number of times in Maryland for MEWF and some other promotions, but he was in ECW. Unfortunately, obviously passed away. But there's so many of us that in the whole ECW experience who are in Eastern and Extreme who all know each other, you know, and who all, so it could be a grand reunion. It would be really cool to see everybody
Yeah.
again who's still with us, you know.
Yep. And I think that perfect spot would possibly obviously be Pennsylvania. So, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, ECW Arena would probably be good. It's really the only. It's still in operation. They still have shows there and stuff. So why not use it?
Yep. So, I know we were talking about Wisconsin earlier, but I don't know if I asked you this. Have you ever wrestled or done anything in Wisconsin before?
I have not. No, actually, it's an interesting state though. There's a lot of wrestling tradition out there. The AWA
Yep.
ran out there. You know, Vern Gagne, um, the Crusher. You know, if we go back that far, the man who made Milwaukee famous. You know, all
Mm-hmm.
that. So yeah, that's cool. I
Yeah.
guess winters are rough. I know.
Yep. It's still cold up here. I mean, the last 2 weeks it was getting in the mid 50s and 60s, but then tomorrow we're expecting snow, and this week
Oh,
it's been really cold.
yeah, I'm sure. I have a couple good friends from Minnesota who say the same thing. You know, it's like starts snowing in October and then it doesn't get warm till like April or May. So
Yeah.
yeah, it gets cold here in Philly too, but not like out where you guys are.
Mm-hmm. So, would you rather join DX, NWO, APA, or BWO?
Oh my. Um, APA. Which ones were they again?
APA was Ron Simmons and JBL.
That's what I thought. That'd be cool to go with those guys. They'd probably fit my gimmick a little more. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the filming of one of those segments where you remember when they were doing the thing where the acolytes they'd be in the bar and then it'd be Simmons and JBL and they'd just wipe the bar out. Do you remember that and just beat the crap out of anybody? It was like a series of vignettes they'd do. One of the times I went up for dark matches, I went to they were filming a vignette there. Bruce Pritchard was running it, and it was the APA beating up some guys. And one of them was my student J.R. Ryder, and I watched it happen. It was pretty cool, you know. So I wouldn't mind doing something like that, a gimmick like that. It's pretty cool, pretty badass,
Yeah, that would definitely fit your persona. Yeah.
you know. So yeah, I'd probably go with that one. I was waiting to see if you'd say the Horseman. I would not fit into the Horsemen at all, but just sentimentally, like you know, that of all the factions, you know, I guess because also when I grew them and the Heenan family, and you know, I think that I could fit into well the Heenan family, but no,
Yeah,
they were all great, that's for sure. Man,
for sure was. Yep. What was like the whole story of the match you had with Sandman for the ECW TV title? Of you winning it from him,
yeah.
but then there was like a battle royale that apparently you both won, and something about vacating it. What was that all about?
Yeah, they were crowning a what happened there? Johnny Hotbody, I think, was the first TV champion, and he got injured. So then they had a double battle royal situation where the winner of each battle royal would face each other in a match for the television title. And that's what happened. I won one battle royal, Sandman won the other, and we had our match. And then um, I went over and got the belt and had it. I had it for a while, and then they went. And then when they actually started doing the tapings, Eddie Gilbert was booking at that point. I don't know how you familiar you are with him or that period of ECW, but Eddie Gilbert was doing the booking, and they thought since we were going to TV, it'd be good for TV to have a title tournament. It'd be more exciting. So I thought that was cool. So I gave up the belt, and then they wound up having a tournament, and then the end, Snuka wound up winning. Jimmy Snuka wound up winning it. So that was my experience with the TV belt. But it was cool, it was a pretty cool thing. And still, I mean, I've held a lot of titles, but that's one that everybody does they know, so it's cool to have held that.
Yeah, yeah, they have like a replica out as a WWE title for that. I mean, so knowing
Yeah,
that you are on the list of the holders of that championship, it must mean something a lot, you know?
it does. Yeah. And because that was, the caliber of guys that held that just kept going up and up and up and up, and you look at the heyday of that belt with like Rob Van Dam and, all that whole era of that belt. Um, yeah, I mean, it certainly is a privilege to be on that list. I mean, you know, absolutely.
For sure. And did you hold the ECW title for like more than once?
No, I just had the one run with it for, let's see, I got it in September. I don't know. I honestly don't remember how it was months that I held it. I don't remember how many though. 4, 5, 6, something like that. Maybe.
Man,
So
that's a great run.
yeah, yeah. Unless I'm totally wrong, but I don't think so. I mean, I know I had it for a while. And then I wound up leaving ECW, right? Like right when the changeover to Extreme was happening, and that's when I left.
Mm. Was there any reason that you left, or did you get asked to be part of the Extreme?
I left because a lot of the guys that were in ECW originally with Eastern, the Philly crew that helped establish the whole thing, when Paul E came in, he wanted to start to import his guys down from New York. So a lot of us started getting phased out. And Eddie Gilbert was still booking, but Paul E had been there for a while when I was there. And I started to see I was getting moved down the card further and further and further, and I could just see where things were going. So I left, and that was that. And then I went out onto the larger wrestling world and the independents and stuff. But ECW went on to pretty incredible heights.
Yep.
So
Who was one wrestler you never got to get into the ring with that you wish you could have in ECW?
um I would have liked to have I would have liked to have worked with Sandman again in that more modern ECW setting. I could brawl pretty well. I mean, that was one thing I was good at too. So, I mean, I think I would have fit. I think the gimmick I had might have been a little too, I don't know if cartoony is the word for them, maybe. Like Taz dropped his paint and stuff. Like they weren't really into that so much, it maybe. But I think I could have hung really well with a lot of that brawling stuff. But again, I look at the shape I'm even in now, like just with the physical, battery. I can't imagine jumping off of that eagle's nest and diving off the, you know, like New Jack when he messed his head up, jumped through. They fell through the table and he smacked his head. Like that's beyond anything I'd be willing to do. And it seemed like
Yeah.
during that phase of ECW, like you had to jump off of stuff like that, and that like wasn't really my bag. I kind of more wanted to work and brawl, and so I think in that way I kind of dodged a bullet, but it
Yeah.
got really crazy there. So, and in the back
Yep.
too. Like I said, I'm not like a partier or anything, so that the whole scene in the back wasn't for me at all. I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, ECW was pretty crazy
Yeah.
as the aspect of the wrestling wise and backstage. But I think your persona would have fit for ECW pretty well. I mean,
Thanks. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I mean, I would have liked to have come back because my peak years was just all over the independents, so I didn't get to um, do what I got to do best, I think, when ECW was at their peak. I like to work with the really kind of, I don't know, everything. I got kind of darker and more, I don't know, it just got more. So, yeah, I think it could have worked. I liked what they did with Matt Bourne. Do you remember the Born Again thing? Do you remember that with Doink when he had been? I got to wrestle
yep.
him. Actually, I feuded with Matt Bourne in the mid '90s for Worldwide Wrestling, and I really liked him. I mean, a lot of people have not the most complimentary things to say. I know that Dark Side of the Ring. I didn't see that, but I had really good matches with Matt Bourne, and I liked the guy. I thought he was cool with me. He joked around. He was great to work with. Um, and then he did the Born Again thing when he went to ECW. I thought that was cool. So if they could have done something like that and we could have gone darker, that would have been really cool. You know.
Yeah.
But thank
I
you for
mean,
saying that.
yeah. I mean, seeing you saying about Matt Bourne, I could definitely see you two teaming up. And same as you and Tasmaniac when he was
Oh,
known as
thanks.
Tasmaniac with the makeup.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, thank you. That's a compliment. And I like that Tasmaniac gimmick. That was cool with the paint. He had the kind of the ripped up looking things, but yeah, that would be cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Do you think you are worthy enough to be part of like a wrestling Hall of Fame, indie or any type?
I'm in three of them so far. Three three independent halls of fame. So I'd say so. It depends where, I mean, some promotions I'd be used in the main events, and then some promotions I'd be like very mid card, and some I'd be in a tag team. And so I don't see why not. I mean, I think there's one thing I think that sort of is a role of mine in wrestling. I've trained guys and a lot of young promotions that were starting out. I would work for. Um, so I think maybe helping young promotions get started and stuff like that. Um, like DCW, I'm in their Hall of Fame and stuff. So anyone who deems me worthy, I'm honored. So yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, does ECWA have a Hall of Fame?
They do. Yeah, they've had one for a while. I got inducted into theirs in '96, I think. Um, so, yep, I got into theirs and DCW and the Independent Wrestling Hall of Fame. I went into that in 2013. Yeah, Independent Wrestling Hall of Fame. So,
Yeah.
that's it's all an honor. It really is. Makes the bumps more worthwhile.
Yep. Yeah, I was gonna say if you weren't part of the ECW or ECWA Hall of Fame, you, yeah, you definitely deserve that.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you. You do what you can. Try to
Yep.
entertain people and learn things and teach along the way. So, you know, I was always more about the experience. You know, they always say, "What is it? Stop and smell the roses." Sometimes I get a little too caught up in smelling
Hmm.
the roses, not mind enough on business. But the journey is what makes it. I think.
Yep. If you now could tell your younger self something, what would that be?
About wrestling, I would say definitely treat it more like be more business minded. I think getting into it so young had benefits because you could be a young veteran, which I was. I was still young when I was a veteran of wrestling, but I would definitely tell myself to keep more of a mind on your business. The business end of it for sure. I would have done a lot more marketing, self promotion. I think guys in my generation too really missed out with the whole social media thing, YouTube, things like that. I think if I had that kind of promotional stuff back when I was wrestling, I would have made a lot of use of that. Um, you can become a star now on online, on YouTube or whatever platform it is. We didn't have that back then, so um, yeah, just to be more business minded, I would tell myself take advantage of things more. I had a lot of opportunities that I did not take for various reasons, and I left, as they say, a lot of money on the table. Um, Turned down a lot of stuff to Japan and things like that. So I would go back and tell myself, listen, man, take these opportunities because when you're young, you don't think about it stopping, about it ending. When you're in your 20s and in shape and you're working all the time, wrestling left and right, and you don't think about it stopping. Um, so I'd say, yeah, take advantage of your opportunities now.
Yep. When you were growing up, were you more of like a shy, quiet kid or outgoing, loud, and excited?
I was more shy and inverted when I was young. Yeah, definitely. As I got in better shape and I started lifting and stuff, I got more confident and a little more outgoing. But yeah, I was quiet as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. So since you said that you were more of like a shy and quiet kid when you were growing up, when you knew you wanted to become a wrestler and started in like the training and
Mhm.
whatnot, what helped you to cope getting out of being shy, scared, and quiet into knowing that you'll be performing in front of these big crowds and have this whole atmosphere of that?
Um, well, like I said, when I started working out when I was younger, it really built my confidence a ton. That's when I started thinking in my teens that maybe I could give this wrestling thing a shot. And then, when I started training, I'm like, holy crap, I can't believe I'm training for this. But I was nervous. You want to talk? I mean, every match I had, like in the beginning, I wanted to run out of the building. I was so scared. And in Philly, those Philly crowds are brutal. And to be a teenager standing there waiting for your name to be announced at the ring, the crowd screaming, and waiting to tear your ass apart. That was it took a while to get past that. To be
Yeah.
get past that intimidation of the crowd and stuff until you realize that they're yelling at you. I started as a heel, and they're yelling at you and stuff. And I took that like, oh shit, I'm not doing a good job. And then Joel, the promoter that started me, said, no, they're giving you heat. This is good. What you don't want is for them to just sit on their hands and do nothing. This is great. They're giving you heat. So once I started seeing it more like that, it started being less scary because I'm like, okay, this is good. So I started giving it back to them. And then you have to come out of your shell. You have to when you're standing in the ring and doing that with the lights and the crowd. Yeah, it kind of pulls you out, and it's great for your mental health. I've struggled with depression and anxiety my whole life, but those times when you're in the ring for whatever, however long that is, that 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, you're so focused on what you're doing and you're so in the moment, and you everything disappears. Any depressive feelings or stuff just kind of goes away in that moment. It's incredibly good for your mentally and therapeutically. So kind of.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I see it as like when you're in the ring, you are like somebody else. I mean, like
Yeah.
for your persona, you're
Yes.
you put on your persona and you go and show the crowd that side of you, and
Yeah.
that your character side that you built up, and that's what side they see. So
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's therapy that way too. Is you become somebody. It's like an extension of your personality, but not at the same time. You do get to play a persona. It's cool. And I would never. I'm a kind of quiet, down to earth kind of guy. So yeah, I'm not going to be out at the mall screaming at people, distorted voice and telling them to shut up and all that kind of stuff. So you can do that at the show.
yeah. What is one thing you would tell your wrestling fans?
Thank you, first of all. I mean, none of us on any level of wrestling would be here without fans. None of us. So, to anyone, thank you. To any fans that will call themselves fans of mine, thank you. To fans of wrestling, thank you. Absolutely 100%. And to just keep following, keep supporting wrestling. That's the main thing. Um, and support independent wrestling. Independent wrestling can be either very good or very bad, I find. So if you can find a good independent promotion to get into and sink your teeth into, yeah, do it. That's where the stars for the future come from. So yeah, please keep supporting independence, and thank you for everything. I hope to get out there in the coming years and see more fans again as I maybe start to do some cons. Like I said, as I've gotten more mobile, get around again and see some folks.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
And then my last question for you is, do you have any advice for me to become a wrestler?
Wow. Yeah, and that's what you want to do, correct? I mean, you want to become um, well, definitely get. It all starts with getting the right training. Who trains you, go into the right school. So I don't know who you have out there necessarily in your neck of the woods. I would look for a trainer who's really worked in the business. I mean, they don't have to be a big name, but someone that knows and has experience, has some connections, and knows how to work and knows the business. Just keep your passion for it, and just try to keep, like I said, just listen and learn. Really try to learn the business, learn the art of it, and everything. The basics are important. Locking up, make it be convincing. you got to believe it. If you don't, the crowd's not, so there's a lot I would tell you, as far as just be legit, believe in yourself, and just, learn your trade well, get trained well, and get booked well as best you can, and just get experience. Um, and really good luck. I mean, if I can help in any way, let me know. You know, you have my info, so you can get a hold of me anytime. I know there's some good schools around here, but that's a hike for you. Like the Monster
Yeah.
Factory, that's not an option. It's in New Jersey. The Dungeon, that's a great one. They're all out here though. But some guys will travel for wrestling school. But you obviously have the passion for it, clearly, and you have a lot of knowledge. You respect the business, clearly. So, I mean, as long as the physical end, you can hold up and learn that way. That gets rough, after a while. Like I said, the traveling and obviously the bumps and stuff. And don't do anything dumb, like, try to work safe. There's hardcore spots and stuff you can do. Just watch yourself, watch your neck, just, advocate for yourself. Don't be afraid to say, no, I'm not going to take that. I'm not going to do that. I've done that before, just because something doesn't sound right. Trust yourself, you know, because you look at, like, remember when
Yeah.
Owen Hart pile drive Steve Austin and paralyzed him for a while. You remember that? He did that to Dan Severn too, and they both said they did not want to do that spot, but he did it anyway. So yeah, speak up for yourself, and yeah,
Mm.
best of luck. Keep working on your gimmick too.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sounds like you're onto something.
Yeah, I know Mr. Kennedy is up in Minnesota. He has the academy up in Minnesota.
Oh, okay, cool.
But that's like 5 hours away from me, and
Yeah.
the driving is an issue for me and
Okay.
my parents. So driving, I mean, Green Bay, 45 minutes away from me. Um, there's a, I've talked to this wrestler. He's been in like dark matches for AEW. He wrestles
Mhm.
for the current OVW right now.
Okay.
And he just opened a new school in Green Bay. Um,
Okay.
T TW3, and I was thinking about possibly starting. I talked with him, and
Okay.
possibly this summer I might be starting to do something with him.
Okay. Good.
And then I just started doing my driving license. So I was thinking about starting with TW3 to get the small things first and the start. And then when I can actually drive myself, I was thinking about bringing that experience that I got from him and bringing it to an upper level of uh, a school with Mr. Kennedy.
That sounds great. Absolutely. Got a bit of a plan there. That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, man. That's awesome. Yeah, you're gonna definitely have to drive. I mean, that's one thing for sure, is, for training, or for one guy I know, old school guy, Q-Ball Carmichael.
oh,
He
yeah.
picked up and moved from New Jersey to Hawaii. Do you know him? He picked up and moved from
Mm-hmm.
New Jersey to Hawaii to train. So guys do it. I was lucky to be in this area because we had schools around here. Like, I tried out at the Monster Factory, actually, and wound up going to Ringmasters. But we had some good schools around here and still do. But this is the Philly area, so. But yeah, it sounds like you got a good plan. So yeah,
Yeah,
try run with that.
yeah,
You know,
thank you.
yeah, man, absolutely.
And I can't thank you enough for taking your time out to do this interview. And it was an absolute pleasure to have you on here. And
Thank you very much. Seriously, I've been looking forward to this, and Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. You know, an old retired independent wrestler. You know, it's giving us a little spotlight. So I appreciate it. It looks like you get some really good guests too. I saw on your thing. So um, I know a number of them, so that's cool. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
man, keep
get
up.
a lot of guests here and there, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I see your list and everything that you send out. It's impressive. So yeah,
Yeah.
man. Do you do like a interview like every day? I mean, or close to it? It seems like.
Um, close to it. I usually don't do Mondays, Wednesdays, or that sort. I usually
Hmm.
try to when I make the dates, I try to stick to Tuesdays, Thursdays,
Hmm.
and unless in like some Saturdays, um, unless that conflicts with that personal wrestler's like schedule, I will most definitely do like any day of the week that fits best for them.
That's
But the
cool.
time I use, yeah, since I have school, I usually do 5:30 p.m. Central, so that's my
Cool.
time.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I hope I can get you for possibly a part two sometime. And you know,
Absolutely. Yeah, and like I said, if you want to send your address, I'll send out a pic. And yeah, stay in touch. Any help I can be as you move forward, yeah, let me know.
yeah, definitely, I definitely will. Thank you. And
Cool.
if you want to plug your like accounts where people can find you and stuff.
Usually the best place is just Facebook, Glen, Glen, Myra, Myhre, Osborne, Osbourne. Glen Myra Osborne. On Facebook, you'll see it's just a wrestling pic of me up there. And yeah, so anyone can feel free to hit me up there. That's usually where I am. I'm a little behind. I have an Instagram account, but I haven't updated it or anything. So Facebook's still the best for right now. But that's it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll
Cool.
message you right after this, and I hope you have a good rest of your night, sir. And
Yeah.
thank you again.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. All right.
Yep.
Take care. All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
See ya.
Yep. You too.
Bye.